Hello, people. It's your boy Usmaan back again with another video. As you can see from the title, we are overcoming and talking about another taboo topic, especially in Asian communities, men's mental health, and obviously discussing whether it matters, should it matter, why doesn't it matter, and most importantly, trying to share our experiences to help you guys through what is a very difficult time with lockdown at the moment and how we're trying to deal with every single day, really. As always, I'm joined by a very special guest. In this case, it's my good friend Kish. How are you doing, brother?
Yeah, very, very good. Yourself, you okay?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, not too bad. Obviously, it's
Good,
been a busy
good.
day. Personally, with work, etc. Obviously, we'll touch upon the importance of keeping yourself active and just being productive. As always, if you have got any comments, if you are listening, if you've got any questions, please let us know in the comment section, and we'll just try to do our best to do the topic justice. At the end of the day, the whole point of this sort of video is to raise awareness first and foremost, and secondly, just talk about it. At the end of the day, we all go through this. We're going to go through some very harrowing stats at some point during the show regarding men's mental health and the ramifications of people dealing with the problems alone. And we just want to create discussion. That's the only thing. Create conversation, create discussion, and let's try to, try help each other through this period, which is lockdown 2.0. Anyways, as always, drop a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. First and foremost, we just want to explain why the title is men's mental health. I know Keisha in particular has had a few comments from female individuals. Obviously curious to why there's no sort of thought onto females' mental health, because of course men and females struggle, with this issue. Well, there's two reasons. First reason, as Keisha's already alluded to, is we can't really relate to your situation. Of course, we're men, so we can only speak on behalf of men. By all means, it'll be an absolute pleasure to get a female on at some point, and you lot can tell us from your perspective how you lot deal with it, and if you've got any advice for fellow females. And the second thing is, I just feel like, in particular, we know, just from our own sort of circle of friends, a lot of guys are not good at sharing their emotions, be it in a positive way, in a negative way, or just opening up about how they're feeling from the day to day. Myself and Keisha have also been friends for a long time now. We always try to have a catch up and try to be as honest and open. But even Tam, I'm sure there's stuff that you've held from me because you're not wanting to talk about it for whatever reason, and vice versa. And we're just trying to get the conversation going. That is basically the two reasons. But Kish, we're going to start with society pressures. For me personally, this is a huge factor within mental health in general. But I'll pass it over to you first and foremost. What does that mean to you, society pressures, when it comes to mental health?
Yeah, of course. I think in particular for me, being involved in a religious household and a religious, family in that perspective, there was numerous sort of society pressures around me on a day-to-day basis. One of the kind of best examples is the fact that in my kind of quite a few years ago, I'm sure you're aware of this. I was fairly good at snooker. I had a good opportunity. I had good chances to make it as a professional. There was
Honestly,
only mentioned it. Every 10 minutes. Yeah, I had good opportunities, but every time, whenever I was succeeding, winning tournaments, winning trophies, and my parents would showcase that to other family members, it was always looked down upon. It was like, yeah, that's fantastic, that's great, but he's not going to make any money out of that. Why doesn't he stick to something like his studies, to start off with, and be a doctor, a lawyer, a solicitor, a dentist? And these were all common cultured Asian jobs, which most Asian, kids have been kind of accustomed to, that if they don't get those sort of roles, then they're classed as a bit of a failure, and those were the sort of pressures that, I was up against as a young kid. And even going towards university, my dad did not initially agree with the course that I did, which was sports business. He wanted me to do something like accounting and so forth. So the pressures never really went. And then growing up in society as well, there's been pressures around, friends and peers. I think the society pressures start is based on expectations on your, studies and academics. But then as you get older, around friends, it's to have a certain type of thinking. For example, I love watching football, and it's like a big thing for me. But for a lot of people that have no interest in football, it's like if you don't have that common theme to talk about with your mates, you're kind of a nobody. You kind of away from that. Why don't you like football? Is there something wrong with you? Are you weird for not liking football? And that was the agenda. And then of course there's finally social pressures over how you look on a physical presence. And I think social media streams such as Instagram, Twitter, they don't really help in that sense, because they put pressure on people, like on men and for women in that regard, where they give people unrealistic aims at times, in terms of what is classed as being the ultimate human being and the ultimate fitness individual, etc. And I think, again, they're just a few of examples that from my past and personal experiences, but I'm sure you've got a couple that are the same and a couple of different ones as well.
Yeah, no, of course, we've got the subtopics such as media pressure as well. And of course, we're going to touch upon Asian communities, and as you kind of alluded to, the fact that the pressure that your family have to, sort of look a certain way in front of others, which is something I personally think is probably the biggest of evils, trying to impress other people. It means that in a job or status. I think a lot of mental health comes down to status. In Asian communities anyways, a lot of it is down from like not just parents, but sometimes you have that expectation on yourself that I need to be a doctor, I need to be a dentist, I need to be a lawyer, because of the status it brings with that. And I feel like every other occupation within your sort of community has been looked down upon or frowned upon from a very young age. I think it kind of goes back to like caste, and where, as an example, a janitor, so to speak, was seen as almost as the low of the low. And I think that backward mindset is the problem in this society. Also, we still see that in the UK. But you touched upon one thing in particular, when you spoke about people wanting to fit in. And I think this is a huge factor in it as well, in terms of men's mental health. It's about fitting in. I think a lot of people are too scared to be an individual in this society. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying be a lone wolf by all means, but what I'm saying is that too many people are scared to be different. Too many people are scared to, be out of the norm or be classed as weird, so to speak. And I think that does bear a brunt on the mental sort of aspect, because you're living a life that isn't naturally you. So, for example, obviously, as you guys know from my channel, I'm passionate about football in particular. But hypothetically speaking, if everyone in my circle wasn't into football and I was like the weird kid, for example, that might sort of change my mindset and be like, no, I can't be into football because nobody else around me is. And I think that does affect people, because you're so busy trying to please everybody else that you stop pleasing yourself. And I think, for me personally, my past experience, I think I've got to say, I wouldn't say that was a massive sort of thing, because I've never really been a people pleaser really, but I know a lot of people that have gone down the route of, wait, I can't do X, Y, and Z because it's not going to keep my parents happy. And I'm not saying do stuff that's not going to keep your parents happy, but what I mean is, you should look after your own mindset as well, because your mental health is one of the most key things. Like, we spoke about racism in football yesterday, and racism in society in particular, and that's also a huge factor within society. But mental health is something that gets overlooked because you can't physically see it. You don't know what's going on in someone's mind. You don't know what their thoughts are. You don't know the daily battles that they have unless you really, really know the person. I think a lot of the times we as human beings, we sacrifice a lot of our happiness just to keep other people and society happy. Do you ever feel like you've fallen into that category at all?
In what way, sorry?
In terms of like, you've kind of, like, I suppose with the snooker thing, you said that, and jokes aside, I know how good you was at snooker, and I know you could have potentially made it if you didn't injure your knee, but
to be honest, it was massive in terms of snooker wise, because I always felt I was up against it. Maybe if I had some more support from my family, other than just my parents, I could have, it might have motivated me even further towards, succeeding. My father was very proud in terms of tournaments and kind of, having little things like being on television for snooker accolades and things like that. He was very proud, but whenever he'd mention it to other family members, they would look down upon it and think, why is he wasting his life, chasing a dream that's never going to be there? And it would have a downward factor for me, because it would make me think that what is the point in me spending, days and hours practicing and kind of grafting away for something that even my own, the people that should be giving you the most support are kind of looking down upon it. And I really struggled to understand that, because at the time I was only 14 to 16 years of age, and that's the kind of age where you kind of need that push. You need someone to give you the right focus points and kind of motivate you to give in that final push. And I think by me not having the support and kind of just reliant upon myself, when in hindsight, we are only humans. We need support from if not our friends, definitely our family. They need to be our kind of, it's like in football, you need your 12th man, you know, for the fans. You need your family to be those people that push you on and kind of, you know, motivate you. And unfortunately, I didn't have that. And I'm not saying that was the main reason why I didn't succeed in that way, but I do think it was a major factor, because I was always up against myself. And if results didn't come my way, I didn't have, you know, the family base there to push me on and further succeed. If anything, it was the opposite, to say, you know, you're not good enough, you lost here or there. Stick to your book, stick to studying, and give yourself more options in life. And I think, in particular in our culture, I think it is the case where there's not enough risk factors in there. It's always a safety net. What you alluded to earlier, you know, doctor, lawyers, etc. These are your safety blankets, because if you get in those type of careers, they're classed as success, and it gives your family almost feels a proud kind of, you know, stature towards it. It kind of promotes them in a way. It kind of makes them think, right, what's your son doing? Because my son or daughter is a lawyer, a doctor. Or your son or daughter is doing sports. That's a bit strange. Surely, you know, and it turns into competition when it shouldn't be. And if anything, it affects the kids even more, and it affects them mentally. And of course, you know, we'll allude to it, you know, later on the show, but, you know, it does create severe mental problems along the way.
Yeah, no, you've said a lot, you know, a lot of very good points that I think in terms of support, you know, as someone who works with kids regularly, I know the sort of impact it has on kids not having that support from their parents, be it in a sort of household that is, you know, stable, so to speak, and most importantly, but just not having that sort of positive reinforcement. I don't think people realize the importance of being, you know, positive. Like, for example, let's just say, I don't know, my brother, just say one of my brothers, they want to be an artist, for example. You know, sometimes it just takes that one person to really just change their mental state. Yeah, like, for example, you might be at the end of your tether thinking, "No, this is not going anywhere. You know, I'm not really getting any success from it." And you just need that one person to change your mentality in terms of a positive from a negative, sorry, to a positive, in terms of just giving them that extra push. And I think that's important. You've spoken about your parents not giving you that push, people around you not giving you that push, and not really believing in you. And that is something that could have been a huge detriment to your mental state in the future. You know, hypothetically speaking, in your studies, you could have had, it could have been a massive backlash. Like, why are these people not believing in my ability? Why are these people not believing in what I'm capable of? And I think that's where we need to be careful when it comes to mental health. We need to understand that the words that we say can have a kind of ramifications on the way people are. You know, some people are more fragile than others, by all means, especially in men's sort of, I don't know, laddish behavior, so to speak, I would call it, is, you know, we have it, and I'm very, very guilty of this. We have a tendency of taking the piss at each other to an extent. And by all means, I do it all the time, you know, in the group chats, I get ripped, whatever it is, you know, I'm overweight or whatever it is. But you could have disagreed. I was just like, yeah, you are. But I think for me personally, it's like, we don't have enough chats that are like, no, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? How is your mental health? And that is a problem in men's culture in general. We're too busy taking the piss at each other. We're too busy trying to be these strong men and not show that frailties, because we're so scared of society. Because society is always painted us as these hard men. And I'm not saying, oh, like, just, you know, constantly crying or whatever it may be, and being open book, because you need to be careful as well who you trust. But what I'm saying is that we have always been sort of painted as, we have to be the strength within a family. We have to be X, Y, and Z. We can't show signs of fragility. We can't cry. You know, I suppose now it's not as much of a taboo. Men crying, you know, people say, so you're a real man for that. But I just think, for me personally, that's where society needs to change. If you are going to properly shed light on it, I think you need to be more open to the fact that men have emotions as well. Like, I don't know what your thoughts on that, because I feel like a lot of
I think
men are too scared to have that sort of side.
I think the biggest issue that men have, and this is from my own experience, is the fact that we really struggle to turn negatives into positives. We're so stubborn towards that negative that if we feel bad about how we're looking in terms of personal appearance, whether it be, you know, our weight or kind of, you know, the way we dress, or kind of if in the group chat, you know, someone says something as a joke, and we take it in a way where we turn it into a massive negative in our brains and in our head, we then really struggle to try and find a way to turn it into a positive. You know, all the people that you go to in terms of, you know, people who can help you with your mental health, that is one of the key things that they say, that, you know, when your luck is down, you need to try and find one way or another to turn it and flip it on its head. But for some reason, for me in particular anyways, and for men that I've spoken to, they really struggle to turn that into a positive. And if anything, they turn it into a motivation, but in a motivation in a way. For example, if I put weight on and I get enough kind of criticism for it, I'll lose weight, but I'll lose weight not for my own purpose. It will be to make other people happy. So if anything, you still technically not turn that negative into a positive at all.
This is
Yeah.
what I mean. For me personally, it's taken me a long time to learn this. And just to get a couple of comments in, Viking Red said, sorry, wrong comment, that one. Pardon me. Highlights the stigma in the Asian community is frightening about mental health. Absolutely. How can you change backwards thinking? Obviously, it's going to take a lot of time. But yeah, just coming back to what you said regarding turning negative positive, I think for me personally, it's always been, it hasn't been that difficult for me, because I've always had like that sort of mindset that you've got to learn from something, like a mistake, for example, as you said, in terms of a negative, you've got to use that opportunity to grow from it. And I think with men in general, we do kind of look at the negatives because we always bear the brunt of it, in terms of we always have to deal with it on our own. Like with women in particular, and this is something that women do a lot better than us, they're more prone to, I don't use the word emotional, but more is it hone? I don't know, in tone with emotions. I don't know a correct terminology, but you know, they're closer to their emotions. They're able to allow their emotion to sort of flow out.
They express
They're more
further.
expressive. Yeah. So with men, the reason we always look at it as a negative is because we're always dealing with these things on our own, and we're always dealing with like a lot of things, and it adds up, because we never deal with the first thing. Like it's always the second, the third, the fourth. It's always a build up with men. We never release it until it's like an explosion. So like just coming back to a couple of other things that I want to talk about is unrealistic expectations. Again, this can come back to society. This can come back to yourself. Like obviously, I'm sure you're a very ambitious lad. Well, I know you're a very ambitious guy. For me personally, 28-year-old guy, you know, 5 years ago, if you were to ask me what would you be when you were 28, I would have said, well, I would think my life would be set. I'd have a house. I'd have a well-paid job. Not to say my job doesn't pay okay, but it is what it is. You know, I thought I'd be better on in life. And I think we have these and I don't think these expectations were unrealistic from me, but we have these expectations based on what we think is right for a certain age, like a timeline. And I think that is another contributing factor, because we set ourselves up for failure. We set ourselves up based on other people's timelines. So, for example, sometimes you'll see on social media like a 21-year-old or something like that has bought a house and moved in, or is married, like wherever it may be in it. In Asian communities, it's like, are you married yet? Are you like that's the number one priority? And I feel like with unrealistic expectations, we set ourselves up for failure, which definitely affects our mental health, because you feel in a way that you failed at life. Like for example, I just say at 30, I probably, when I was 20, I probably thought in 10 years time I'd be settled, I'd be married, I'd have my own house, I'd have a good job, etc. And then when you come closer to those years, you kind of start thinking, well, I'm not going to achieve that. And I think the importance is that it's okay not to be at that point yet. It's okay to be at a different timeline. It's okay to just be in the moment and understand. I'm not saying don't set goals. Of course, setting realistic goals is very important. But do you ever feel like you almost drowning in these expectations that you have of yourself because you can't personally ever live up to them?
Yeah, I think, to use a football analogy, I feel like the decisions we are at our best when we're making calm decisions. It's just like a football team. If the back four and the goalkeeper are playing with via last ditch tackles, or if the goalkeeper is, you know, not catching the ball from corners and kind of just punching it out, that puts pressure on the defense, because the defense is thinking, I can't rely on my goalkeeper, and it means that the defense will also not be calm and relaxed. And it's the same with us. If we get to say a certain age and we're thinking, like you mentioned, 28, 29, 30, and you think, oh God, I'm not married yet, the next girl I meet, I need to make sure I get married to her, sort of thing. You will rush and you might accommodate for someone that you weren't 100% certain on anyways, and you just thought, you know, based on age, I need to crack on. If you've not got a house yet, you might buy a house that, again, you'll buy and then you'll think, God, why have I bought this? You know, this is such a mess. You know, if I'd only taken more time. Career plans, if you go into something that you don't feel was right for you, but you just think, oh, I need a salary, I need to make money, I need to provide for my family, I need to, you know, etc. If you think of all these things without actually taking your time and having a relaxed approach, you will just make it worse off for yourself, you know, long term. And if anything, it'll be harder for you to recover long term from the effects that you've created based on the pressure that you feel you were under than anything else. And again, it's another thing. It's easier said than done, but having that approach where you just need to say to yourself, like you said, 5 years, house, marriage, etc. So what if I'm not there yet? Does it mean it's never going to happen? No, because it will happen. But does it mean that it has to happen in the next year, in the next 2 years? No, it will happen when I'm all good and ready, and when I meet the right person, or when I have the right opportunity to invest, when I have the right job opportunity, the right housing, you know, opportunity, etc. I think that's where, for men in particular, it's the biggest pressure, where we feel so succumbed to pressure around society that this is where we should be, that when we don't achieve that based on what other people's timings are, we become so fixated and so, you know, so succumb towards that being a failure, when if anything it shouldn't be a failure. It should be the opposite, where, you know, you just weren't ready at that point in time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We say something in Islam called maktub, which basically means destiny. Like everything, and this is something that's been a difficulty for me mentally. I've got to be honest here. This has been my biggest struggle, like, throughout my life, and I think a lot of men go through this. You know, as you alluded to, the men in the household. Luckily for me, I had 3 older brothers, so it wasn't as bad for me. But we're always being painted as the breadwinners. Like, we got to cater financially, and we've always had that expectation that, you know, you have to be at a certain point in your life, at a certain age. You've got, as soon as you're 18 and you're legal to work, you need to be able to provide for your family. And I'm not saying that those expectations shouldn't be on you, because as a man, and as I can consider this confidently, my first ever, you know, sort of expectation as a man is to provide for my family, and it always should be that. However, sometimes when you know you're not capable of doing that financially, mentally, physically, whatever it may be, it does become like you're a failure. You can't live up to those expectations. And those expectations, where have they been put from? Those expectations are from society. Where does it say anywhere, like, that you need to do this by this age? Where does it say that at 23, 24, 25 you need to have your own place, you need to do this? It doesn't say that anywhere. That is just always society. And we've got a comment here from the United Way saying not everyone is on the same path they take. I don't like the expectations communities put on us, always looking and making decisions for us. Be patient, everything will fall into place. As I've already alluded to, in Islam we believe massively in the plan of our Lord, in destiny, in fate. Like, I'm 28, my life is completely different to somebody else. I know people that are 25, they're married, they got a kid, they got a house, and that's okay, until you accept that everybody's on a different path and everything's destined for different people. You won't be happy if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people's life. Look at my man, he's got a Mercedes S-Class or whatever it may be. I've got Jack shit, I've got a Corsa or whatever it may be, I don't know. No disrespect, anyone's got a Corsa. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I'm just saying, as an example, you know, oh look, he's got a flashy car, he's 3 years younger than me, he's got an amazing phone, he's got amazing Rolex and so forth. And it kind of ties into media, the social media platforms in particular. You kind of mentioned it at the start, and just the importance of it. Like, you know, there's a lot of people starting to wake up to the fact that Instagram is the biggest virus on the planet. And again, I know we're not talking about women's mental health here, and I would love to have a woman on here at some point to discuss this in further details, but the expectations on women to look a certain way is absolutely ridiculous. and you know, to wherever it may be, like, you know, a lot of Instagram models, and this is no fault to them, they can do whatever they want, but the it's so many people painting a false image. Like, people don't look like that.
No.
And again, this affects people mentally because, again, attraction and beauty and all these things, outer body things or materialistic things, so to speak, are things that have always given people happiness. So, for example, people will say, you know, if I'm not good looking, I'm not happy. Or I suppose I can understand if you're physically unfit. Yeah, I can understand why that would mentally affect you. We'll touch upon the importance of keeping in shape, etc. But the fact that you're constantly comparing yourself on social media, that people are only posting the highlights, nobody posted the picture, or hardly anyone posted a picture of them like looking at shit, or you know, them struggling in life, or them with a shit phone or a shit watch or a shit car, shit house. Or not to say anything shit, you got to be grateful for what you got. But what I'm saying is, like, and again, you know how much I love J. Cole, and like his song "Love Yours," for me personally, just it epitomizes everything that people need to think about. Is at the end of the day, you've got to love yours. You've got to just love what you've got. You've got to be grateful for what you've got, because somebody's always got it worse. And I think with Instagram in particular, I'll pass it on to you because I know you're very self-conscious as well. But how much of an impact do you think Instagram? I suppose Twitter is very toxic as well, but for different reasons. But how important do you think Instagram is in terms of
Yeah.
the factor in people's mental
It's
health?
it's weird because I think Instagram became massive when we started going when we were into uni. I think second year is when it really started kicking in, and then third year, and just after we finished uni, it started becoming massive with influencers and everything else on top of that.
Yeah,
Instagram, when it started, was literally a picture book of your life. Pretty much, it was just it was literally like a memory book of your life, and kind of just to share your experiences. Over recent years, it's become more of a situation where it's kind of, you know, expectations of what the ideal human should look like. You know, what the best woman should look like, what the best guy should look like. You know, a dream guy should have an 8-pack. You know, tattoos. You know, kind of colored hair, and kind of, you know, have a beach place, and you know, have a particular smile, particular, you know, features, crystal white teeth. For women, it's the one with, you know, the best body type, and kind of the best dress sense, and kind of no spots, no acne, all kind of, you know, clear. And I think those expectations are just unmanageable. I think I got to a stage quite a few years ago where, you know, to be relevant, it got to a stage where I was posting almost daily, and it was just to stay relevant, to stay in time, because I was always under the, you know, under the sort of expectation that by posting daily, it gets more attention and more kind of recognition. And it wasn't until I had a comment quite a few years ago from someone who you mentioned saying, you don't need to do this. If anything, you're making yourself feel as if you love yourself too much from this. Now, what I took from that was, no, I actually don't love myself enough. The reason why I'm doing this is because I want that attention. I actually want that attention because I want to feel as if what I'm doing is right. And that was the biggest learning curve I had, because after that moment, after that comment, you know, that person, for whatever comment that it was, and for whatever purpose, whether positive or negative, I took it as the biggest positive, because then I realized that, you know, I'm clearly not happy within myself, because if I was, I shouldn't need to have other people's attention on me for me to feel like I'm doing well and I'm happy and I look good. I should want to do that because of myself, you know, and Instagram should be more about in the moment and your current experience, rather than what can I post today for me to get the most attention? What's my best picture to get the most likes or the most comments, you know, things like that. And that's where Instagram has lost itself completely. I know in recent times, they've had things like, you know, kind of blocking on like applications and kind of other things for influencers where they can't. I think they've launched a new thing because it was Khloe Kardashian who posted a picture which was, you know, massively, you know, photoshopped and edited. That has now been banned on the application, which I think is fantastic. It was well overdue. But I think in a way the damage has been done, because, you know, millions of people, millions and maybe billions of people focus on that platform entirely to kind of value themselves of, you know, how good their appearance is against other people around them, which is not at all how it should be.
Yeah. No, this comes back to a couple of things that I want to talk about. Like, first and foremost, comparing yourself to others is the biggest bane of any human being's life. If you ever compare yourself to others, and you sit there and you say, why is X, Y, and Z looking like this? Why is X, Y, and Z got this house? You can never be happy with what you've got. And I'm a strong believer of focusing on yourself. And I think it's very much easier said than done. And I think what you said is very important as well. A lot of people, and obviously I've done it in my 20s, early 20s, not so much now because I don't really care. I suppose the older you get, you don't really care so much for these things. But when I was of age, like early 20s, you really seek people's validation. Like you post photos on Instagram, on Twitter, Facebook, wherever it may be, and you really want that interaction from people. You really want to be validated in terms of likes. And Wasta said here that they've got rid of the likes number, which has been a huge positive in that sense, because that was a real sort of detriment, like to people's like mental state. Because, like, for example, just say you post a selfie, right? Just say I post a selfie, and I never used to get much likes on my pictures anyway, because I don't have that much of following. But even if I'd had a lot of following, let's just say I get 50 likes, for example. Let's just say I get 50 likes. Next man posted a photo, gets to double the likes, and we've got the same amount of followers. Mentally or automatically, I'm gonna think, wait, fuck me, I must be ugly. Or like, do you know what I mean? Like, automatically, you're assuming that without even like saying that. Like, so obviously, we've got Lauren joining us here for the first time, saying evening. Hopefully, you well, Lauren. But yeah, I think like with Instagram, it comes down to validation. I think for me, again, speaking from my personal experience, because like I said, I'm 28, so I've kind of been there and lived through that. Is that I learned the hard way that the only way you can truly be happy is if you're happy with yourself. And what I mean by that is you have to be happy with the person you are, and not just saying that. It's easy to say, "Oh, I'm happy. I don't need people." You know, you have those people say, "Oh, I don't need a man," or "I don't need a girlfriend," or whatever. Maybe you have to truly be in that situation. You can't. Words are cheap, because at the end of the day, when you go back to your room and you're sitting on your own, you can't lie to yourself. Whatever's going on in your head, you cannot lie to yourself. So you can lie to your friends and say, "Oh, I don't need a girlfriend. I don't need a boyfriend. I don't need an expensive house." If you generally don't believe that, then it's pointless, because you have to actually be honest with yourself. And look, I'm not happy because of X, Y, and Z. And you have to be able to deal with it face on and say, okay, how do I rectify this? How do I get to a position that I am happy? And I think when it comes to Instagram and physical appearance, to come back to that, that is one of the biggest issues with mental health. You know, we'll go on to obviously some of the other issues as well, but I think a lot of people really beat themselves up about, I don't look as good as the next person, and I don't have a flashy car like the next person.
I agree.
I just don't have this person's life. And what we need to remember is that you can't compare yourself, as I already said, but it's not a true reflection of reality. Like, we're not living in reality. That's not reality. Social media is not reality. And I got a comment here from Viking Red, who's a good follower of mine who follows regularly, saying, "Tell Junior to be more calm and believe in himself." And again, obviously, I work with kids on a daily basis, so this is something that I talk about regularly. But the importance of self-belief above everything is literally the key to your happiness. You have got to be so happy in yourself and focus on yourself. Like, for me personally, like, Kish, you know me well, like, I haven't really, obviously, I'm just gonna be honest, like, in the Asian communities, Usmaan, you're 28, why are you not married? I get it all the time. Why are you not married? And the reason I'm not married is because I wasn't happy with who I was. I wasn't happy with where I was in life. I was always like, I'm flipping going to be 28 next year. You know, I need to be in this position that I've got my own house, I've got X, Y, Z. And those things just didn't materialize for whatever reason. Just God didn't plan it for me. And I was never happy about that. I always used to beat myself up about it. And then I realized that I was kind of finding happiness in other things, other people, temporary happiness, you know, with friends, with potential relations, whatever you want to class it as. And until I took a step back and realized, and this year has been a massive eye-opening for me, I realized that until you take a step back, you focus on yourself and find happiness in who you are and accept all your flaws, all your sort of things that you don't have. For example, like I don't know, million mansion house or whatever it may be that's keeping you up at night. Until you accept all of them, you can never be happy, because that is the honest truth. And coming back to what you said, Viking Red, about Junior, self-belief, it comes back to that. You've got to believe in yourself to the extent that you back yourself in anything you do. Believe that, you know, believe in your source, as I say. You know, you got to believe in your own source. You got to just be confident in who you are, because this, you've got to accept it, because you can't change it. Yes, you can get plastic surgery, etc., but it's just fake. Like, it's not really who you are. You've got to accept who you are, believe in what you know your journey is going to hold, and you've got to enjoy it. Life is short. At the end of the day, life is it's a very short journey. It'll be gone. You know, we're touching 30 now, man. It's crazy. Like I met you at university.
It's
We was
mad.
20. And I can literally remember the first day I met you when I was sat outside that uni lecture. And you know, when you first saw, I saw you, you lost all that weight, etc. That was like 6 to 7 years ago. It's like,
Yeah.
it's insane to even think. And life goes so quick. So for me personally, it's about being honest with yourself. Like I think that's the biggest thing. You got to be true to yourself at all
Yeah,
times.
I agree. I agree.
Let's talk about obviously we'll speak about personal difficulties obviously a bit more detail, but let's talk about Asian communities, because obviously both Asian lads, again, I can't speak on behalf of, you know, Bits and Bobs and Benji and I don't know, Acting Joe or anybody else from other communities. We're just speaking on behalf of our experiences here, so by all means feel free to let us know your experiences in the comments. But Kish, we'll start with you. Obviously we kind of alluded to the snooker one, but how difficult has it been for you as an only child, you know, living up to the expectations of an Asian household?
It's been it's been relentless, to be honest. You know, ever since kind of being an only child is enough pressure as it is, because it's like if you don't succeed, or if you don't manage the expectations of your parents, you know, it's classed as a failure. But it's strange because success can be put into so many different ways. Success should really be what you class as your own success, not what other people class as what success should be for them. And that was something that I always fought against, you know, whether it be school, whether it be college, whether it be university. For example, you know, in college, I got, you know, distinctions, but then, you know, I was told that it was distinctions in business. So that's not really great. You know, your cousin has got, you know, A's in, you know, English or maths or, you know, literature, etc. You know, so why can't you do it in that? I got a 2-1 in sports management. What sports management? You should have picked something else to do. Why didn't you get a first? Why did you get a 2-1? So there's always been pressures around kind of, you know, educational side of things, but just in general, there's been pressure in terms of expectations of what I should do. You know, for example, me going out to Manchester instead of staying in Sheffield with my parents was initially looked down upon by my mum. You know, it was looked really, really bad. It was something that she couldn't accept. You know, me having a social life where I'm not at home and I'm out with friends. You know, I'm out enjoying my adult life and kind of learning how to make my own mistakes in a way. She didn't appreciate that, and it was something that she couldn't get out of her head as to why, you know, I was doing that. Even at certain points now, you know, if I don't ring, for example, every couple of days, it's apparently it's not acceptable, or, you know, it's looked down upon. So I feel like there's parts of that where it does come down to, you know, it's Asian knowledge to keep their kids kind of stuck with them in a way, and kind of, you know, grounded in a sense where you kind of manage what your kids are doing, and regardless of what they are, you choose what their lifestyle choices should be. It shouldn't be up to you, it should be up to them. That's kind of the direction that they take it. And I think I do feel that, again, you know, I can't think about it from a women's perspective, but I can imagine that from a woman's perspective, it's 10 times harder in the Asian community for a woman to decide what she wants to do. At least on the guy's perspective, I do think that we get a bit more leeway, but for Asian women in particular, it's kind of near enough no, you know, no kind of decision making opportunities. But I do feel like for me, throughout my entire life, and even now, you know, in terms of who should I be with, you know, in terms of for a life partner, you know, they've always tried to dictate the choices that I should make, and unfortunately I don't think that will ever stop. But I think from us as people, we need to have that strength towards saying, I appreciate where you're coming from, I appreciate, you know, that this might have been at your point in time, that might have been the decision that you made, but at the end of the day, I'm not happy with this. You know, I want to make my own decisions, I want to make my own way, and regardless of if you like it or not, you're either with me or you're not. You know, eventually, if your parents and your family love you enough, the decisions you make, you know, it might take them a bit of time, but they should, you know, by the end, if they truthfully love you, they should stand by you and respect, you know, the overall decision that you made.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree with you in terms of the sort of pressure, and then it's difficult to live up to the expectations that they do have of you, especially in the Asian community as well. With mental health, it's such a taboo topic in terms of parents just don't understand the effects that their decisions and in particular, obviously with our situation, is that the fact that they have on trying to control your life. And obviously you mentioned obviously your relationship. We don't need to go into too much detail, but not respecting your decisions and sort of ramifications that has on you having to constantly and just live up to what they're expecting, and it's just draining. Like it becomes draining. Like
to quickly add on that as well, from your point, you have three brothers who, from what I've known, you're quite close with your brothers, and from what you've told me in the past, you have been able to talk to them, which it must have helped you massively because I know from knowing you for a long time, I know that as always, we're human, we have up and down roads, but I know that your family, i.e. your brothers, have helped you massively. Whereas for me, I never had that opportunity. Whereas, if I have mental health issues,
how important would you say network, like support network is?
This is again, and this leads to what we said at the beginning of the show, that men struggle to speak to other people, other peers towards support. They feel that it's more of an embarrassment if they speak up to their mates about their mental issues, because I know for a fact that with myself in the past, I have never still to this day been able to speak to my parents about mental health, because the one or two occasions where I have mentioned it, they've looked down on it and they've kind of laughed at it in a way and said that, no, this should be nothing. That's nothing. That shouldn't be anything wrong with you. You should just laugh it off and crack on. But sometimes that's not the solution. And no matter how hard you try, that doesn't work. And at times when I mentioned it, it made me feel like I was the silly one and I was the one who I shouldn't have these problems because, my own family are saying that this shouldn't be a problem and you shouldn't really care about it. So I shouldn't care about it, but why am I caring about it? And if my parents are saying for me to not talk about it to them, then why would it be any different to speak to my mates about it? Because they might also think the same. And that was a difficulty, and that was a kind of conundrum that kind of, that I was under. And it took me a long time to finally speak to one of my mates and kind of, to you in particular, and kind of tell you how I felt. And it was like a last resort because I had no other choice, because my family didn't allow it and I was in boiling point. But it should have never got to that stage where I was at that kind of tipping edge. It should have been at the beginning, where stage one, speaking to my parents, they should have been there and supported. But again, I don't think I can blame them in that aspect, because I think it's more to do with generation to generation. Asian communities are brought up. So it's not their fault. It's the way that they've been brought up. So they think that whatever they're passing on as knowledge to their children is right, because they were given that knowledge in the past and they worked out well. So, what difference is it for me to pass that same knowledge on to my children in a way as well?
Yeah, no, I listen. I hear what you're saying. I think this comment sums it up perfectly as well. Asian communities love brushing things under the carpet. The truth is, our parents never dealt with these issues, so therefore they don't know how to deal with it. And I think that's such an important fact. And I think, a lot of people go through and suffer alone. I think that's the whole point of this video, by the way. We're not here for any other reason but to create discussion, create conversation between men. And we're going to continue to do this on this platform. So if this is the kind of stuff that you want to watch, obviously drop a like and subscribe to the channel. I know it's not really relevant to what the channel is about, but nevertheless, I think we're so passionate about raising awareness for this, and we're going to continue to do that. So, if you want to support that movement, by all means, go for it. But it comes back to that. There's just not enough conversation in Asian communities. I don't remember many conversations I've had with Asians in general. Obviously, my siblings are sort of exempt from that. But in general, that, it's not really something that we think about growing up. All we think about is, what is your career? When are you getting married? They're the first two things. It's never, how are you? How is your mental health? How are things? It's okay. Don't get me wrong. People, of course, mention those things, but it's in like politeness. It's not in genuine asking, how are you? Like, if that makes sense. It's like the first things people will ask, or when you see your auntie, for example, first time in a while. I know with you, it'll be the same as it will be me. When are you getting married? When are you? What are you doing? Or what job have you got? What is this? What car are you driving? Why are you still living at home? Why have you not got a £90 million house in LA or Miami? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's relentless, and it does become very draining. And I think the most important thing is having those conversations and having those important conversations with people and speaking out about it, because the more you don't talk about it, the more you're going to suffer alone. And I think that kind of leads us on to the next topic. Obviously, we'll finish on potentially personal difficulties if we've got time. But the next topic is quite damning statistically, and I know Keisha's done a bit of research, which he's got to hand now, and I'll pass it over to you. So we want to talk about suicide, like in particular men's suicide. It's a very touchy subject, so we want to give it due respect, but just briefly, and this is why this conversation is so important for us on this platform, and whatever the platform may be. So Kish, I'll pass it to you.
So here is some stats. So just over 3 or 4 suicides in the UK are men, and the total statistic in that is 76% of the UK suicides are men in the UK. Wow. Which for me is just ridiculous. And this is and 12.5% of men in the UK are suffering from one of the most common mental health disorders as well, but are afraid to mention or say anything at all. Men are nearly 3 times more likely than women to become alcohol dependent due to feeling depressed over home situations. So home situations can be things like relationships, family, and kind of actual psychological issues around their mental health as well, which again is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. In terms of the findings of the suicides were broken down into 6 elements. One is personal traits, i.e. unemployment, social disconnection, and triggering events such as job loss. This increases suicide. Masculinity. Men respond more to stress via using that sense of alcohol and drugs. Relationship breakdowns, which is a common one. Challenges of midlife. Now, midlife can be broken down in many different ways. For me in particular, and I know you're going to mention this, was after university. After university, I went through a massive mental breakdown because first and foremost, and I can happily say this, being in working life, for about 6 years now, no one ever gives you any heads up as to how difficult work life is compared to uni. If you could give me a chance now to go back to university, I would snap your hand off. Doing work, coursework, exams and kind of turning into, lessons is nowhere near as tough as what grown-up life is post-university. And no one, including uni, gave us any kind of life tips or lessons towards that at all. And if anything, there should be more that should be done about that, which I'm sure you're going to discuss later on. Yeah. And so, socioeconomic factors provided 2 out of 3 men who commit suicide yearly are due to the fact of due to economic factors. So providing for their families, being able to bring food and water to the table, that and that's just this just continues again and again and again, and it just shows that the pressures around men all relate to the fact that they can't discuss these things with other people. They feel too manly in a way to share this.
When you said masculinity, so I think for me, I think again it comes back to what I said is, we have this image of men that it's weakness. It's a sign of weakness. If you're crying or you're showing your emotion or you're showing that you're down, obviously with your real genuine friends you can do that, but not enough not only on social media and in films. It's not portrayed, and men are never portrayed as a certain way in films. You grow up as a kid watching these films, men are always seen as a strong one. I'm not to say women are weak or anything, but men are always seen as a strong person. You can never show a sign of weakness. If you show a sign of weakness, it's deemed as a negative. And that is the reason why men's suicide is so high, because men do not want to be seen as weak. That is one thing that we've grown up as. We don't want to be seen as weakness, and it's always been a sign of weakness if you open up and you're down on your knees or you're down in your luck. And I think that is one of the factors that need to change.
The biggest stat that I left out as well, and this kind of shows the world that we now live in with social media. In the last 5 years, suicide in general, not just for men, but suicide in general for men and for women, has increased by 35% in 5 years. 35%. What has happened in the last 5 years? Social media has exploded. 100%. For me, I'm not saying that that's the only factor, because it could be numerous factors, but isn't it strange how in the last 5 years suicide has increased by 35%, and it just so happens that that's been the period of time where social media has exploded on our platforms.
I don't think it's a coincidence. Obviously social media's been around for a long time, but you look at all these platforms. That's again, Snapchat is another one. Snapchat is brilliant at hiding reality. You see someone snap, for example, hypothetically speaking, you see someone Snapchat. I don't post a lot on Snapchat as much as I used to, anyways. And you can see them on a holiday, for example. Let's just say you see someone on holiday, you see him, and then they don't post on Snapchat for a long time. The next time you see their Snapchat, they're on holiday again. You're like, what the? I've been on holiday like once this year, and you've been on like 3-4 holidays, because that's the only time they post on the Snapchat is when they're on holiday. And again, I suppose I was somebody that did this. I didn't really post much on my platforms really, unless I was doing something of some form of interest. And I think we kind of get lured into this sort of false sense of reality when we're on social media. And like we've already alluded to, especially with Instagram, you see the highlights, you see everyone's highlight reel. Again, just to bring it back to football, as we always say, anyone can look good on YouTube. In terms of a footballer, anyone can look good in a 2.5-minute compilation. I'm sure from our 5-a-side videos that I did way back in the years, I'm sure I can make myself look decent, especially when I scored like a hat trick with my left foot, like Bale did that one day. And you can make yourself look great. You can make yourself portray yourself in any manner. I can make myself look like a fucking millionaire if I wanted to, but obviously I'm not, so I wouldn't do that. But if you're a normal human being looking at these glammed up versions of yourself, comparing yourself to celebrities, and again, celebrity status is an absolute disgrace, and we haven't mentioned that at all. And this isn't a fault of the celebrities, by the way. This isn't no fault to them, and nor is it a criticism of them. But the way they deemed us, these higher ups, like for example, don't get me wrong, if I met Will Smith, I'll be cast. Don't get me wrong, but they're worshipped. Like celebrities are worshipped, and everyone wants to attain that status. Everyone wants to be loved and adored, because in reality, the truth is not many of us are loved and adored. Maybe 1 or 2 people love and adore us, generally one being our mum most of the times, and the other probably being our partner, or I don't know, a sibling, for example. And that's the harsh reality. A lot of people are trying to attain things that are unrealistic in terms of, let's just look at the Dwayne The Rock Johnson, an absolute legend, an icon. He has stupid amount of people. Everyone must love him. Of course they do. Like he's done it all. People want that. People are jealous. People get envious of that. The truth is, again, I come back to J. Cole's song, until you love what you have and are grateful for what the little things you have. You might have 2 people in your life that genuinely love you. Well, that should be okay, because at the end of the day, that's all you need. However, in society, people are so popular on social media. Oh, look, this guy's got 20K followers. He must be a somebody. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they get verified, they get special treatment, and everyone looks at that and thinks, why am I not getting that? And that does affect people mentally, because you're constantly comparing. And as you said about the suicide, it comes back to, as in the suicide rate is increasing drastically in the last 5 years. It comes back to people looking at other people's lives and thinking, well, I haven't got shit. What have I got to live for? But in actual fact, you've got everything to live for. Like a Logic song as well. I think it was Logic song. He sang the song about suicide as well. I don't want to live anymore. And then at the end it says, I want to live. And if you go through that song, it's just harsh reality. We're constantly comparing ourselves to other people. We always make things a lot worse in our head because we don't discuss it. The more we have open conversations regarding what our worries are and our concerns are, the more we'll be able to tackle them. And I think that's with men's health. The conversation needs to be louder. It's all well and good having these hashtag mental health awareness things, but the conversation needs to be there in communities, in local mosques, in local churches, and coming back to education as well. Like, again, you spoke about university, and I just want to touch upon this, and I'll pass it to you. When I left university, that was the most lost I've ever been in my entire life. Just think about this, lads, right? Let me just give you an analogy here. Just think about this. Everyone tuning in, just I want you to put yourself in the shoe here, right? So imagine you're an animal, right, in a zoo. You've been in a zoo in captivity for your entire life. So you've been in a zoo, right, since you were a little lion cub, and you've been there for 20 years, 25 years. You've been accustomed to that manner, accustomed to that life. And then all of a sudden, some generous zookeeper goes, no, we're going to release you into the wilderness. You think, okay, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. I've wanted this for all my life. I don't know what that feels like, but let's see how it goes. That's what it's like with education. From the moment you can talk you're in school. So from 3 years old, 4 years old, wherever it may be, right? You're in school, you go all the way through, you go to secondary school, primary school, secondary school, or whatever, high school, whatever you guys call it, college, university. You're 23, depending on if you've got a year back, give or take, you graduate. You're 23 years old. Your entire life has been built around education, has been built around going to school, doing your course, doing your homework, and you're having that structure from Monday to Friday. And then all of a sudden, you're left, the cage is opened. They said, there you go, off you go, mate. Just do your thing. Like, there you go, mate, you're free. No support after that, no well care, whatever the word is, no well-being check, or how are you getting on from the universities? And I say university because that's normally when people leave education, and you just left. The education system is one of the problems. I guarantee if you go back to statistics, how many of those suicides, right, are from young people in the early 20s that have either left education after college and they haven't got a clue what they're doing with their life, or after university when they felt so lost and there's no support network at all. You're just left to your own devices. Then you think, I'm a failure. Like, I've got no plan. I don't know what I'm doing. And at that age, looking back, okay, granted, I probably should know what I'm doing, but it's okay not to know what you're doing at 21 for the rest of your life. Like, it's okay. We need a bit of guide. There should be more guidance, and there should be more workshops, and it should be more normalized that this is a normal issue to feel lost, to feel worried. And I guarantee you speak to 9 out of 10 students after university, there's a couple of month period that you haven't got a flipping clue what you're doing in life, that you're generally lost. And I know people that just graduate that feel like that. Kishla, what are your thoughts on that, and obviously from your personal experiences?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I struggled massively mentally.
I
Not
remember you as well after
not only the fact that I left university afterwards, it was also the fact that I was back home in Sheffield. After being 3 years in Manchester, I really, really struggled being back at home, and it was kind of like a rewind process where it felt like before uni started, and I'm in Sheffield and I've just finished college, sort of thing again. And I really struggled mentally to kind of realize that this is no longer my life anymore. I'm no longer a student. I remember when me and you, when we finished our last exam in our final year, and then we went to uni straight after, and we looked at our campus, the business school, and we just said, I think we both said this, we were like, we no longer belong here anymore. It was the weirdest feeling ever. It was on that day we finished our last exam and we went to the campus and we just saw the building, and I remember both of us just said, this feels so strange. Even though we're still classed as uni students, we're no longer students. This is it. After today, now it's officially done. We've done our last exam. It's complete. And I'll never ever forget that day, because that was the day where afterwards I started spiraling, and I kind of realized that, how do I cope? Now you have to apply for these grad schemes and these grad jobs, and again, literally the analogy that you gave is fantastic. Not only have you been put into the wilderness, you now have to learn how to get the prey, how to chase,
exactly. And
you've never been taught. You don't know. It's literally like being in the lake and trying to catch your own fish. If you don't know, if you don't have the tools and you don't know how to utilize those tools, then how can you then expect to bring food home? It was the strangest feeling, and I think it took me altogether. I think it took me probably a good 3 to 4 years post university to realize that this is actually reality. This is where I am, and this is the process of how you need to bring food to the table. This is what I need to do. This is the process, and it shouldn't have taken that long. I'm not saying that by the support that it would have quickened up the process, but I definitely think it would have helped. And we spoke about this regularly, that I do feel like unis and education facilities need to offer that support.
There's no well-being care. I don't know what the correct terminology is, lads, so please let me know. But there's no well-being check. There's no a year, within that year. I know they say technically in a year you could come back to us, but like Kish has already alluded to, the thing that you spiral out the most is your mental health, because you generally panic. You're like, shit. I've been a student. For me, basically, because I was held back a couple of years. I graduated when I was 23, I believe, and my whole life, you think about it, 20 years of my life has been education. Monday to Friday, you're in school, you're in primary school, you're in secondary, college, and so forth. And then to have I literally had Monday to Friday free. It's like you'll fend for yourself. I remember getting my first job, my first ever proper job in a call center. And there's nothing wrong with people that work in a call center. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is, I didn't have any understanding how to get a job, like write my CV properly, how to. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they, they should teach us this, but at some point in education, like even at college, they should teach you how to write a CV and how to get a job, how to, make contacts, how to network, how to, understand the importance of saving your money, understand, like getting yourself on the ladder. Like these things are not taught, and you're not on your feet. You're literally on the floor, half drowning, and you fucking can't swim half the time. It's like how do I rescue myself from this situation?
Yeah, I agree. It was a horrible experience, and I feel like something has to be done. I think even just the figures, everything on top of that just proves the point that there has to be more support, for students because they can't handle it. They can't. You've been involved. You've been in this bubble, like you said, for 20 years. You're involved in a bubble. It's like you've been. It's like
Like you've been
babysitting your
life
kid.
in jail. You've just come out
Yeah,
of you come out on bail. They've realized you're not guilty. Out of
yeah,
20 years, obviously, you see so many cases, and then people go mental. Have you seen like
yeah,
have you seen When They See Us? Have you seen When They See Us?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
like again, just to come onto obviously just quickly, the lad that was 16 that got put in prison with the adults, I've forgotten his name, Corey, I think it is. He went up as in the real human being, not the guy that played him in the documentary, Netflix series. He went mental because he was like, "What the fuck am I gonna do now? I've been here for 20 years or whatever it is. I've not had an opportunity to be a kid. I've not had an opportunity to be educated in the manner in which how you live in society, and it just basically is. I don't even like God forbid if anything happens to him, but he's alive, but he's not really living. He's not really present in that moment.
Mm, yeah, yeah, I agree. It's a tough whole situation, and I think the education systems and boards need to have a real hard think of what they're trying to achieve and what they're actually doing because it's got to a stage now where fair enough with academics they're trying, but you need to help in general life, to kind of really help the individuals because these students rely upon you, that you are paying them the fees, you are paying them the high fees, they're getting paid regardless, so they should be able to give you at least that little helping hand. Even for example, if we had sessions of, if our tutors telling us how they got to where they are, how they've reached to where they are, what did they do post university, what was their stage, from post uni to become a teacher of the
Yeah,
uni, even sessions and that. The only thing I remember us having was maybe one or two sessions of how to use LinkedIn, which is
yeah.
not,
They
that's
have those career fairs that are absolutely irrelevant. They don't
yeah.
use the career fairs as they should. They should tell you, okay, granted, those career fairs can be good if you network and you know how to network properly and you're efficient in that, but they don't tell you anything. How do you? They don't really tell you how you apply for the job. They'll briefly say, "Here's a
Mm,
brochure." Like, there's no support. Like you said,
no,
they collect the fees and then the dip. Basically, it's like you've
pretty
paid us
much.
now. You've got your degree. He's a piece of paper, mate. In our case, not really relevant to what we do in life currently. He's never been asked about my degree, and I'm not saying don't get a degree. Don't. I'm not condoning that either. But I've never been asked, "Oh, have you got your degree paper?" By the way, like just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
half the time it doesn't even mean anything. It's just like again, it comes back to society pressures. Everyone is told that you have to get a degree, you have to graduate from university. Well, in actual fact, some people haven't even got that. I'm not saying dropping out of school is the right way to go, but what I'm saying is we're so conformed in society and the timeline that is being branded upon us since a young age that when we don't live up to that timeline, where a lot of people won't, it becomes a negative impact on us. And I think that's where the issue is. Like we need to detach ourselves from what society thinks is the norm. Because everybody
Hmm.
else's norm is different. Everybody's timeline is different. Like you've got a good job now, but it's taking you how many years? Like, do you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, don't you had good jobs after uni, but I obviously you're a bit more stable now in terms of your career, etc. I'm probably not there yet, for whatever reason, which is okay. We're in different aspects, and it's not for me to sit and compare myself to you. It's not for you to sit there and compare yourself to me. But I just want to finish off with a bit of advice. I know, again, like I've already mentioned, we're going to have a young audience watching this, and some of which won't make sense to them because they're probably going through that. What I will say is a bit of advice first and foremost. I guess we've not really touched upon our own personal stories. We can do that in another episode on how we overcame them difficulties. So, because obviously we've gone on for a while. I think my bit of advice is there's a few bits I'd say is first and foremost, understand who you are as a person. I think that is, I only learned that in the last year. And I wish somebody told me this before. Like, genuinely, and I really mean this, focus on yourself. And I don't mean that in the sense that, oh, segregate yourself or isolate yourself from other human beings. That doesn't mean that. It means that make sure you put your happiness above anybody else's. Obviously, family and friends, that's an exception. But in terms of your happiness, what makes you happy? So be it education. Obviously, Kish said that, you know, his parents weren't happy with what he did, but he did it anyways in terms of his studies. You need to follow your passions. You need to follow your heart. You need to do what makes you happy. Don't just be a doctor because everyone in your family wants you to be a doctor, although you know it's not going to make you happy. That is going to not only upset you for long periods, but potentially can cause resentment. And again, resentment, you don't want any negativity. Like in life, you want to avoid all forms of negativity. You got to be positive as much as you possibly can. And you don't want any forms of negativity within you, like in terms of resentment for people because, oh, why did you force me to be a doctor? I hate being a doctor. I wanted to be a, I don't know, a property surveyor or something, whatever it may be. But you've got to follow your heart. You've got to stay true to yourself, and you've got to focus on yourself. For me personally, I think focus on what makes you happy, and then everything else will fall in place. And I think that's what I've learned in this year. As you know, Kish, last year I was very turbulent, but this year, even though we've had the lockdown, I've been up and down again. We'll do a separate episode on that. But I think this year I've just come out better because I've just fully just done my own thing, done my YouTube, done my little things on the side for career and whatnot. But yeah, if you've got any advice, just to finish off, and obviously we'll do another show.
Yes, similar to you. Make sure that you find your own purpose. Keep yourself to a routine. Keep yourself, motivated and dedicated. Give yourself something to achieve, but give yourself baby steps in a way. Don't say that this time tomorrow you're going to be a millionaire. Give yourself realistic aims. So, for example, this time tomorrow morning, whether it be fitness, I will go for a walk tomorrow morning. I will go for a run. Give yourself baby steps, and give yourself something to go by. And again, exactly what Usmaan said, try and give yourself, turn every negative into a positive, and give yourself every possible benefit of what are you doing right in your life, what are you doing that's actually a benefit rather than the negatives, because we find so many excuses to find negatives within ourselves that we actually forget all of the hard work that we've already achieved.
Absolutely.
I'm sure if you sat down and actually thought of the things that you've achieved so far in your life, you would be speechless in your own mind, because when you actually sit back and think, you'd be like, wow, I've actually done this much already. So again, sit back, think, and appreciate what you've done so far.
Absolutely, and I cannot echo that sentiment more. The importance of self-gratification is so key. Don't look for validation from others. Coming back to the Instagram thing, do not look for people to like your videos, like your pictures. Don't seek validation from others. Seek validation from yourself and your Lord. If you're religious, seek validation from your Lord. Seek validation from your family, wherever it may be. But don't seek it from other people in terms of outer people that aren't genuinely there for you. Like for me personally, I'm grateful that I've got a very supportive family, and by all means, I can seek validation from them. But in saying that, I need to be happy with who I am myself. Like that is the most important thing. When I go to sleep or when I lay in my bed after I've done this video and take my hat off for the first time, but take my hat
it's like
off,
KSI with a bandana.
But with the hat, my hair is dead. I'm not taking it off. But when you lay down, right, and I always believe this, I believe this to my core, you can't lie to yourself. So the truth is, you've got to look yourself in the mirror, and if you're not happy, attack your face, like attack your head on. Why am I not happy? I'm not happy because of financial situation. I'm not happy because, I don't know, my girlfriend left me or my boyfriend left me or whatever it may be. I lost my house. And these are things that are going to affect you mentally, and that's okay. You need to understand it's okay not to be okay. It's perfectly normal. Every single human being goes through these phases of up and downs. No one's life is an up. There's no such thing as a perfect life. There's no such thing as people constantly being on the high. That's not possible. You always have downs. You can look at it from an athlete perspective. Loads of them have exceptional highs. That Pogba's won the World Cup, for example, and now he's at a low point in his life. That is a part of learning, and it's a part of life. It's a part of growth. And you need to accept that that's a part of life. So you're never always going to be happy. But as Kisha said, always look for the positives. Always look for the silver lining and grow from it. But anyways, we'll be back listen, we're going to be back with another one. Obviously, if you did enjoy it, make sure you do drop a like, because obviously that does show us that you want another one. To be honest, I'm going to be very honest here, I couldn't even care if we get one like on this video than one like being me.
Just a quick one as well, Usmaan. Worldwide Red Show, great comment. That's a great way to finish that. If you want to put that, his last comment, fantastic.
Yeah, the same people who clap on your way up in life be the same who are cheering you when you hit your down moment. If you live for the praises of people, you'll die of the criticism. No, mate, that is absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful.
Like, a word that better. That is absolutely
well said.
Spot on. Listen, at the end of the day, you've got to find the happiness in yourself. As I've said already, don't find it in anybody else. Because as he said there, they'll cheer you on the way up and they'll cheer you on the way down, mate. Simple as that. Find your own happiness and you'll be fine, man. Don't worry. And look, we're going to be back again with another video. We'll talk more personally on our own difficulties on mental health and how we've overcome them and how we are still overcoming them. Obviously, I know a lot of people are struggling with lockdown too, hence the sort of motivation to put this video out. I've been someone that struggled as well myself. But yeah, just keep it locked in. Subscribe if you're new. Drop a like. As I've said, even if we get 2 likes, we'll make another video, because even if we help one person, that is the whole purpose of this video. Anyway, stay tuned. Check out
guys.
podcast. We did a podcast on racism in football and racism in society. Another very important topic that is very dear to myself, Kish, and a lot of the individuals on this platform. And yeah, just want to say a massive thank you to Keishan. We'll be back tomorrow with something that really upsets me, which is Manchester United. Talking about football is depressing, lads, for us Man United fans at the moment. So, you know, I tried everything to get out of it. But sadly, we'll be back tomorrow. It's going to be a very good video. Obviously, Kish will be on. We're going to be discussing Pep Guardiola with Jose Mourinho, who is the greatest. Anyways, it's been your host, Usmaan. Peace.